And then there were two. Welcome to our College Football Playoff National Championship preview. I'm Marisa Flores, joined by Stan Becton. Today we're breaking down the title game between Notre Dame and Ohio State. Let's get right into it. Stan, both teams have had remarkable journeys to get here. Notre Dame, after an early season loss to Northern Illinois, they've been on a 13-game winning streak. How do you think that loss served as a turning point for their season?
I think that loss really set the tone for how the rest of the season played out, and it really made them go back to the drawing board and reevaluate how they were playing football earlier in the season. If you look at that Northern Illinois game, you'll see that Riley Leonard at quarterback for Notre Dame has really started using his legs a lot more since that game. I mean, he has had games where he's had 50 plus rushing yards 8 different times since then. And then if you look at the defense side of the ball, they've outscored opponents 27.5 points per game since that loss in Northern Illinois. And if you look at them specifically in the running game, they've really been able to stop the run. They allowed 190 rushing yards to a MAC school. No offense to the MAC, but if you're Notre Dame, you're supposed to be playing at a different level and have different talent, especially in the trenches. But since that game, they've barely allowed any teams beyond Navy, which runs a triple option, to average more than 4 yards a carry. So they've really attacked their game plan a lot differently since that Northern Illinois game.
Absolutely. Notre Dame, they've been impressing us a lot. And on the flip side, Ohio State, their defense has been a standout, especially in their semifinal win we saw over Texas. A crucial goal line stand and an 83-yard fumble return all sealed the win for them. But what makes their defense so effective, and how can they maintain that against Notre Dame?
It really starts up front for Ohio State, and you have to look at JTT and Jack Sawyer on the edges, really finally starting to play like the 5 stars that they were recruited in as. I mean, watching Ohio State these last 4 years, there's been times, except for against Penn State, where these guys have been no-shows, even though they were some of the highly touted recruits that Ohio State has ever had. But now they're really setting the tone on the edge. You saw Jack Sawyer with that strip sack fumble return against Texas, step up big. You have Tyleek Williams in the middle of that defense, very underrated since all the edge rushers get all the highlights. And then you have Caleb Downs on the back end. He's the best defender in college football, very versatile. They'll put him in the box. They'll have him roam, really not have an assignment, and that really confuses defense. And then we have to shout out Cody Simon as well, who's been just flying around the football. So you have a lot of different talent at a lot of different levels, and it makes it really hard to game plan against it, but it all starts up front.
A lot of talent. We touched on the defense. Now, on the offensive side, both teams have had dynamic quarterbacks leading them. But how would you compare the style of Will Howard and Riley Leonard, and what challenges might they face against these defenses?
Yeah, Riley Leonard is one of those quarterbacks that, he's not always the one that can attack the best with his arms, but he will attack with his legs. He's been able to run the ball very effectively with his legs. You saw that against Penn State. You saw that against Georgia, where he didn't pass for over, I believe, 100 yards, but still rushed for, I think, 80 yards or something like that, and still had an effective day. So he can attack the defenses with his legs when he's not able to get the job done with his arms. And then Will Howard on the other side of the ball is someone who just takes what the defense gives him. He has a lot of talent. He has two elite running backs, probably the best freshman receiver we might have ever seen in college football, and Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka, a first-round pick at receiver. So he just takes what the defense gives him and gets the ball in his playmakers' hands.
Both sidelines have some special players and special teams. Special teams can sometimes be the unsung heroes in games like this. So, do you see any particular aspect of special teams play in this matchup that might be a game changer?
I think punting will have the biggest difference in that game because if you watch that game Ohio State played against Texas, after they started losing the field position battle and starting in their own territory, that's when the game started to get a little closer. So if Notre Dame and Ohio State, whoever can punt the ball effectively and not necessarily go for it on fourth down, say you're at the 50-yard line, it might be better to punt the ball and force that other offense to have a long drive versus potentially not getting that fourth down conversion and then affecting the field position battle.
And finally, Stan, last thing, what are the key factors that could lead up to an upset by Notre Dame or a dominant win by the Buckeyes?
I think it all comes down to one-on-one matchups. Notre Dame loves to play man coverage. That's who they are. They are a man coverage team. Ohio State has a lot of good receivers that can beat man coverage. So it comes down to winning those one-on-ones. A team's not going to switch up who they are this late in the season. So they're going to run some man coverage and man concepts. So we have to see if Ohio State can beat those. And then on the other side of the ball, can Notre Dame's offensive line hold up in those one-on-one blocks they'll have? And can Riley Leonard attack when Ohio State forces those tight windows? Can he attack the defense, be accurate with his throws, and even take some good runs with his legs? You have to watch out for those one-on-one matchups. And then can Notre Dame's defensive line get that pressure? We have to watch that as well, because when Colin Simmons for Texas was getting pressure, absolutely cooking Josh Fryer at right tackle in that semifinal game, Ohio State couldn't do anything. So can Notre Dame win that one-on-one matchup on the defensive line?
A lot of excitement in store, and that's all the time we have. Ohio State and Notre Dame clashing for the national championship January 20th in Atlanta. Stay tuned to ncaa.com for all your coverage leading up to the big game. This is Marisa Flores, joined by Stan Becton. We'll see you next time.